Welcome to our NCABLE presentation. NCABLE accounts are relatively new. We started the program in January of 2017 following federal legislation that was signed by President Obama in December of 2014. And as of today, there's over 40 states that offer an ABLE program. And all of those programs do follow that same federal legislation. So my last slide shows a resource center where you can go and learn more about all of those state programs across the country. And there are some differences around investment choices and fees, and obviously the state that's sponsoring the program. But there is also a lot of similarity because we all follow that same federal legislation. So the great news about ABLE programs and our North Carolina or NCABLE program is it is a way for people living with disabilities to save and invest their money for both everyday expenses today in the here and now, as well as expenses in the future. And if it is an individual who's participating in any federal or state benefit program, such as SSI, SSDI, or Medicaid, that has a resource cap, by utilizing an ABLE program, you can actually set aside up to $100,000 without jeopardizing those benefits. So that $100,000 is not included in the calculation for that resource cap. So that's a big, big deal for folks that have been really trained to not save money, unfortunately, as a response to that. So ABLE is a big game changer in that regard. So what I'd like to talk about early in the presentation is who's eligible to open up an ABLE program. And eligibility is pretty straightforward, but there are a couple of criteria to be aware of. First and foremost, the individual does need to have a disability, and that can be substantiated either through an actual written diagnosis from a licensed physician, or if they meet the eligibility standard for SSI or SSDI due to that disability. So the first standard is that they are disabled, and the second standard is that that disability occurred prior to the age of 26. Now, a lot of times I get the question of, well, why 26? Where did that come from? That was part of that federal legislation that I referred to. And the thinking there, we assume, is that 26 is set so it's not only, disabilities that have onset during childhood or maybe at birth, but also for our veterans coming back from conflicts that may have sustained some injuries, traumatic brain injury, and other things. There is pending federal legislation that would increase that age to 46, which we think would just be wonderful because it would affect people who, maybe had an accident, lost a limb after age 26, or some of those other, debilitating diseases with onset in your 30s. So it would be great to see that increase. But for now, those are the two qualifying criteria: disability that had onset prior to age 26. So sometimes folks say, oh, well, I'm 55, so I guess I can't open up an ABLE account. But we just try to remind them, well, if it's someone with Down syndrome who's 55, you most certainly can open it up. Obviously, you've had that your whole life. So it's not just for children, it's for anyone who can meet that criteria regardless of their age. It is a self-certification program, and that self-certification occurs at the time the account is open. So someone's filling out an application, and then every year thereafter. Now that can sound a little bit onerous, but it really isn't. What we do is we make the statement to the individual, you're certifying that you meet these criteria. And then every year when they get their annual statement, there's a little blurb on that says, it's your obligation to inform us if you're no longer qualified to have this ABLE account. So it's very much the way we complete our taxes every single year. It's really an honor system when you think about it. We're all obligated to do that, and the vast majority of everyone does. Enable is kind of set up that same way, that it's on the account owner to certify that they're eligible. We do all of this really online. So on this slide, what we're demonstrating on the left-hand side is our website. You can enroll online at nc.savewithable.com. And you see that little button on the lower right-hand side that says Start Here. And you just click on that. It says Open an Account. And you can go through it. It's about a 15-minute process. It's very straightforward. But for individuals who might need some extra help, we do have a client service center that's listed at the bottom there. They're open Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 at that toll-free number, the 888 number. Or if people don't have internet access or they're not comfortable doing that online, you can, of course, go to the website, probably at a library or another institution like that, and download the form, print it, fill it out, and then mail it in. You know, one of the things that we do feel sets North Carolina apart and our NCABLE program is that we are a member of the National ABLE Alliance, which is a consortium of states. We're 18 states who are actually getting ready to have one more state join us. And we feel this is really important because it allows us to bring our total size and purchasing power to the marketplace when we do interact with investment providers or our program manager, and that's the company that runs the call center on the website. So in our North Carolina program, we have about $11 million in assets. We're part of the consortium that's well over 150 million assets. So we're just about 7% of that consortium. And so we've gained all that purchasing power by cooperating and interacting with those other states. So we think that's a big benefit to us in our efforts to keep all of those prices low. We also, in our North Carolina state statute, have the ability for a parent to open up an account for their child, even if that child is no longer a minor. So that's another helpful way to get accounts open. If there is someone who does not, who's been deemed incompetent and they can't open up a financial account on their own, their parent can do that for them, even if they are over the age of 18. We also work very hard to be transparent on all of our fees and expenses, and I'll talk about those in another couple of slides. And then the other thing too we like to emphasize is that we do have partnerships with the ARC, with the Autism Society of North Carolina, with Special Olympics, a whole host of DHHS. And so as we're hearing disability rights of North Carolina, so as we're hearing issues and concerns, particularly as it pertains to our program, we are happy to work on our account owners' behalf, go to the North Carolina General Assembly, and really advocate for them to enhance our program. And we think that's paid off. In one of our recent surveys of our account owners, you see this graphic in the upper left-hand side, 97% of our current NCABLE account owners said they would recommend our program to someone else that they know or is eligible to open up and is interested in opening up. So that obviously makes us feel very good that we must be getting something right here if our current account owners are that satisfied with the program, the features, and the expenses. So I think that's kind of a great compliment. A somewhat unique feature of ABLE accounts is the person with the disability is the account owner. And so this is their money. Anyone who gives them money, who makes a contribution, a deposit into their account, is gifting them that money. Now, we also know that not all of our account owners necessarily have the expertise or the ability to, number one, open an account, and then number two, continue to manage it on an ongoing basis. And for that reason, we've introduced this concept of authorized agents. This is an option. People don't have to have an authorized agent. We have plenty of folks who have no issue with cognition or intellectual ability. But we do have others who have intellectual disabilities and do need an authorized agent to assist them. And so to grant the greatest amount of flexibility, we've developed 4 different levels in really sort of ascending order of control. So the very first level is what I like to refer to as a read-only access. So if the account owner establishes an authorized agent and gives them level 1 access, they're able to see that the individual has an account. They can see how much money is in the account. They can see how that money is invested. They can see transactions in the account, but they can't do anything. They can't take money out. They can't move money around. They're just aware of the account. And this could be helpful for someone, like a CPA, let's say, or a financial advisor that's helping them with those types of things. Level 2 adds to that in that the individual can do everything a level 1 authorized agent can, but at a level 2, they can move the money around within the account. So this might be helpful where you have a sibling, let's say, who's assisting an individual with their bill paying. And they might say, hey, Mary, I was looking at the account. I see that your rent's due. There is a checking account feature with this program. You really need to move some money over into the checking account so you can write that check and pay your rent. And then let's say Mary doesn't respond. A level 2 person can go in and move that money from the longer term investment into the checking account feature. But until you get to level 3, they still can't take that money out. So a level 3 person can do everything that a level 1 and a level 2 can, but they can actually withdraw money out of the account. So in that example that I presented, that level 3 person would be able to write the check to pay the rent. At all times, these funds are intended for the benefit of the account owner and for their exclusive use. So obviously you would not be writing a check for your own rent. And then a level 4 authorized agent has full access to the account. They not only know that the account exists and the balance and how things are invested, they can move money around, they can make investment selections, and they can even take money out. So this is when you have someone that is akin to a guardian, someone with that level of authorization that really has been assigned that kind of responsibility. You would name only one authorized agent. And the reason for that is just a concern of sort of having too many cooks in the kitchen, if you will, of, let's be straight on, there's the one account owner and the one authorized agent so that we don't have multiple people moving things around. In North Carolina, there's a couple of different types of guardianships. So a guardian of the person cannot open up an ABLE account. You either have to be a general guardian or a guardian of the estate. So those are the folks that very specifically have been given that authority to manage financial resources. And so they would be a level 4 in all likelihood, unless there was something specific in the guardianship papers that precluded that. So that's where this issue of having a parent open up an account has become very, very important, because it's kind of a catch-22 that people say, well, I really don't have any financial resources because I've had this resource cap placed on me from SSI. So I've never needed a guardian of the estate or a general guardian. I only have a guardian of the person, but you're telling me a guardian of the person can't open up this type of an account. And so I don't know that we've solved for that perfectly, but by adding a parent as an individual who can open and manage an account, it goes a long way in solving that. And then the last thing I'll say on this is federal regulation has been finalized very recently, opening up the ability to have a sibling open an account and other family members. We're working with our current program manager to adopt those rules and handle it from their technology perspective. So there's going to be a lot more to come on that soon. So we do talk about contribution sources, and this is one of the really nice features in that it's very, very flexible. Basically, anyone and everyone can contribute to the account on behalf of the account owner. It can be the account owner themselves, and if they're employed, their earned income can go in, or if they just have other savings due to maybe gifts over the years, family and friends can contribute, and you can even roll over money from 529 college savings plans. The stimulus benefit checks that have been made available recently from the federal government are absolutely eligible to be added as well. And we're seeing a big lift in our account openings due to that, of people saying, hey, I've gotten one or more of these checks. This is a great opportunity now for me to open up an account and deposit the funds in it. So what's important to know is there are some limits to these programs, and the three numbers on this slide do a good job of sort of addressing that in a couple of different ways. The first one on the left-hand side, the $15,000 per year, is the limit. You're limited to $15,000 per year, again, from all contribution sources that can be added into the program. The $100,000 in that center circle is the amount that you can save and still participate in one of those means tested programs like SSI. $450,000 is a lifetime limit. So we don't think anyone's going to meet that anytime soon, but it's just good to know that over the course of the entire life of the account, you cannot save more than $450,000. Now, what's important to know is if you do hit that $100,000 limit, your SSI benefits will be suspended, but the individual will not be removed from the program. And what you'll do is just stop contributing and maybe spend down the amount under that $100,000, and then those SSI benefits will be turned back on. It is good to know that if the individual is working, they're able to save or contribute more than that $15,000 limit that I just talked about. So what you can do if you have earned income is absolutely contribute that $15,000 from all sources. And then on top of that, you can add the lesser of the individual's earned income or the one-person poverty limit for the prior year. And right now that's just above $12,000 per year. So with that, if you have the resources, you're able to put just about $27,000 away into one of these ABLE accounts on an annual basis. So it is a really nice resource if you do have an individual or a family with that level of financial resource. They can really start kind of socking away those dollars for the day that the account owner is maybe older and on their own, and you've got, a nice little kind of nest egg there for them and for their expenses associated with their disability. Let me touch base on the ways that you can actually add the money into the account. NCABLE accounts are not available through a brick and mortar. You don't walk into a bank or a brokerage account. But having said that, it's still pretty easy to get the money into the account. You can fill out a check and mail it in. That's a good way to go. We do also have electronic fund transfer if you want to move money from one bank account to another. We do have payroll deductions. So if the individual is working, they can save a little bit with each one of their paychecks. And then we do also have the UGift feature, and you can learn more about that at ugiftable.com. But it's basically a way to gift if you think about a high school graduation or a birthday or a holiday. You can send out a notice to the family, the friend network, and say, hey, Bobby's has a graduation coming up. If you'd like to contribute to his ABLE account, follow this link and make a contribution. So it just makes it very, very easy for folks to contribute. It's also good to know that SSI payments are eligible for going into ABLE accounts. That was something we worked to get clarified, and we have gotten that confirmation from Social Security Administration. One question we get is, once the money is in the account, what are the options for investing it? And I mentioned a couple slides ago that there is a checking account option. This is offered by Fifth Third Bank. They're based in Ohio. This checking account feature is included as part of the ABLE account. It looks like any other checking account you've probably seen. It is interest bearing. It's FDIC insured up to $250,000. There is a debit card that comes with the checking account. There's no card issuance fee. Of course, you can write checks because it's a checking account. You can also access your funds at over 53,000 ATMs across the country for no additional fee, and there are no overdraft fees. So it's a really nice option for individuals who want to write a check, again, to pay utilities, pay their rent, anything that they would like to, really treat it the way you would treat any other checking account. For the dollars that may not be needed in the next 3 months or 6 months, maybe there's a longer term savings plan here, like for a vehicle or for an apartment or a condominium or a house or for a college education. There are longer term investments that are represented by those 6 portfolios that we have on the right hand side. And they vary in their risk level from aggressive to conservative, each of them blending a mixture of stocks and bonds and cash. These are not FDIC insured. They can lose money just like any other portfolio out there in the stock market and in the bond market. But it does give the person the opportunity to save for the long term. So if you have, maybe a child who's 5 or 10 or 15, and they're hoping to save for a college education or for their own housing at some time, it's nice to have these longer term investment vehicles available. But it really is very much up to the individual and why they're saving and what they hope to do with those funds. Let's talk a little bit about how this money can be used. And it's important to know that all of the dollars go in after tax into the ABLE account, but they grow tax-free and they stay tax-free. They remain tax-free if the dollars are used for qualified disability expenses, what we refer to as QDEs. QDEs are defined under that federal legislation, so all the ABLE programs in the country have that same rule set that we abide by. The good news is that QDEs are defined very, very broadly, and so sometimes it makes it a little bit harder to ascertain, well, what really is a QDE? But what I go by is this second paragraph on this slide, which states, a QDE is any expense related to the account owner's disability that can be used for the benefit of the account owner in maintaining or improving their health, their independence, or their quality of life. So that, again, is very, very broad, but that can be of benefit. Key things to underline there is it's for the account owner's benefit, and it is related to their disability. So what are some common examples? Well, housing, rent payment, a mortgage payment, even home maintenance, landscaping, if there's a refrigerator that needs to be replaced, their transportation, obviously medical expenses, their legal fees, and also, we don't have it on the chart here, but final burial and funeral expenses. It's important to know that food and cell phones may also be considered a QDE. Again, particularly with cell phones, when you think about quality of life and independence, we all so rely on our cell phones and have that as a means for, when you're moving around town, you're traveling from city to city or state to state. That can be a real lifeline, and just staying in touch with your family, your network. Occupational therapy, physical therapy, supportive technologies, those are all QDEs. How do I get my money? We talked a little bit about how you put money in, but how do you get money? Well, I mentioned those ATMs, 53,000 across the country. That's one way to take money out. Electronic fund transfer out of the account into another checking or savings account. A debit card, and again, it just looks like a Fifth Third debit card. You'd use that anywhere you would use a debit card. And of course, the checkbook is another way. So very easy to access those funds. Let's talk about the fees, because we really do have, as one of our kind of fundamental beliefs for this program is, it's not just a savings account. ABLE programs are a vehicle for financial independence, for really assisting the individual to think about the future and to think about saving and to think about how they pay for their daily expenses, and not to be sort of forced into that, matrix of, well, you don't get to save and you don't get to be financially literate because you have a disability. So we really love to see this as an empowering exercise as much as anything else. And so part of that is to have very clear and transparent pricing. For ABLE programs, there are 3 fees, and they are listed on this slide. Nothing more, nothing less. So the first fee is the annual account maintenance fee, and that is a flat $45 regardless of the size of the account or the balance in the account. And that is true if the individual agrees to receive electronic statements. If they want to have paper statements, then it's a $60 annual fee, and that's every year for every account. The bulk of that does go to the program manager, $40 to the program manager, $55 if they're asking for paper statements, and then $5 does go to the North Carolina ABLE program to help cover our expenses. If the individual opts to have the checking account feature, there is a $2 per month charge, but the good news is that's pretty easy to waive, and that can be done in one or two ways. The first is if the average daily account balance is $250 or more, that $2 per month charge will be waived. Or if they agree to receive electronic statements, that $2 per month fee will be waived. So that's a pretty good deal, and most of our folks are successful in getting that fee waived. And then the third and final fee is the charge for those underlying investments in those investment portfolios. And we have worked to keep that very, very low. We do use index funds or passive investments to keep it as a very low fee. And so those vary between 34 and 37 basis points. And the way you convert that to dollars is that for every $1,000 in the savings account, that's going to be between $3.40 and $3.70 per year for those investments. So if you add those 3 things up, the annual account maintenance fee, the checking account fee, and the annual investment option fee, that represents all of the fees associated with the program. And again, when we compare our program to others around the country, we're not necessarily the lowest, but we're most certainly not the highest. We have very, very competitive fees. As we sort of get to the end of the presentation here, I do like to just talk about special needs trusts. And I'm not an attorney, I'm not a special needs attorney, but I just know that I often get this question of, well, wait a minute, if I have an ABLE program, do I need a special needs trust, or I already have a special needs trust? Do I need an ABLE program? And what I like to share with folks is these are 2 tools in the toolkit. You might not need both, or you might benefit from having both. They are 2 very, very different vehicles. I will say an ABLE account, as you saw, is very easy to open. The minimum contribution is $25. It's all done online. And the way you can spend the money is pretty flexible. But what an ABLE account is not, is it is not an estate planning tool. So sometimes I'll have folks call me and they'll say, hey, Mary, my grandmother passed away. She wants to leave me her house. I think when we sell it, I might get, $100,000 net. I'd love to be able to put that in my ABLE account. Well, you can't put $100,000 in an ABLE account all in 1 year. You'd have to parse that out over the course of many, many years. That's when you should probably go talk to a special needs trust attorney so that you can put those kind of dollars in there. Or if someone says, I have a house that I eventually want to give to you, that would probably make more sense to go into a trust. Now, you're hiring an attorney, so that's going to be more expensive. There are more restrictions on how those dollars can be spent. But again, if you're really talking about much more sizable assets, that's when I tend to say to folks, you should probably go talk to an attorney and see what their view is on it. And again, you could have both. You could have the trust for certain things, and you could have an ABLE account for certain things. What I've provided on this slide are just a number of resources and ways to contact us. On the right-hand side is that ABLE National Resource Center and their website, ablenrc.org. That, again, is very, very helpful when you're looking to compare different state programs. They have a very neat tool there. It's a map of the United States, and you can click on the different states and their information will pop up. You can compare a couple of programs side by side, and you can write them and call them and send them an email. And then on the left-hand side, we have our specific program information. Again, it's nc.savewithable.com and our toll-free number to that call center. We are fairly active with social media, so we do ask people to go ahead and follow us on Twitter, join our Facebook page, and then when we do have updates on the program, whatever that might be, if we're changing the investments or fees, or there's a new state that's joined the Alliance, that's where we typically provide those kinds of updates and information.